Welcome to the Matanuska Glacier. Actually, that was a kind of a trick question. We've all been on a glacier before at this point in time because we're on one right now. Yeah. So here we've got about 50 to 60 feet of ice underneath what's known as moraine. That's the thin dirt and rock coating that's on top of the ice. Now, by the time we get across the bridge, we're actually going to be on over 300 feet of ice. Now, the reason for that is glaciers melt into a wedge. So as they lose weight from the top, basically from melting away from sunlight and temperature, well, the bottom doesn't have as much pressure on it anymore, so it can't carve as deep into the valley. So as the top is coming down, the bottom is coming up. Comes to a point just behind us under the ground. That's called the toe or terminus of the glacier, meaning terminal end. Now, the Matanuska is the largest road accessible glacier in North America, which just means we can drive up to it to do what we're doing today. It's about a medium-sized glacier in terms of Alaska's glacier, which Alaska does house just over 100,000 glaciers. Our glaciers make up just under 5/8 of the world's glaciers. So a pretty incredible amount of ice up here. Now, this one's just over 27 miles long. It averages just over 2 miles in width. Has the widest point down here at the toe or terminus of 4 miles. So everything that we see from tree line to tree line on both sides is ice. That area over there looks like a construction zone, just the thin coating of moraine on top of the ice. So it does stretch all the way across the valley. Now this thing averages 1,200 foot in depth, and it has a deepest point of 1,996 feet. It ends down here at just over 1,400 foot of elevation, and it starts at the top of Mount Marcus Baker, which is the tallest mountain in the Chugach mountain range. Now that makes up the mountain range that's on this side of the valley. When you guys are driving up here, you're driving in the Talkeetna mountain range. So there's a fault line down the center of the valley. That's what separates the two mountain ranges there. Now Mount Marcus Baker is just over 13,100 feet tall. It is directly behind Mount Wickersham. We can't see Mount Marcus Baker from here, but for reference, that's a 7,400 foot mountain. So that mountain's about half the size of what this goes up to the top of. Now that's why this glacier is able to still be here and be classified as healthy, because it goes so high into the atmosphere. Now what that means for us is we have an excellent accumulation zone. An accumulation zone is in an area that's always below freezing, therefore it only sees snow as precipitation all year round, never a drop of rain. And that starts at 8,000 foot of elevation. So if you're driving around Alaska and anything you see nice snow peak coverage, you know where the 8,000 foot line is at this time of year. So you can kind of judge your mountains from that. Now our first 7 miles of ice are above that, okay? And they say anywhere between 700 and 1,600 inches of snow up there annually. Last year it topped off at just over 1,264 inches. So a little bit of snow on that first 7 miles of ice. That's how the glacier fills itself back up, so it can continue pushing down the valley, because it's always moving in a forward motion. Now the Matanuska averages a forward rate of 80 meters a year, which that's about 10 inches a day. And in the last 2 years, we've actually been in a period of surge, meaning it's moving faster than normal. We've seen movement up to 16 inches a day, which is incredibly fast for ice to be moving. Like literally our walk back is going to be between an inch and a half shorter than our walk out there today. That's how much the ground's going to move underneath us while we're out there. So we're going to save a whole lot of time on the way back. Yeah, a whole lot. Yeah. So up until last year, we had been in a period of recession. So recession means we lose more to melt than what we see in forward push. And on average, we lose roughly 90 meters to melt each year. So you get 80 meters of forward motion on an average year, plus 90 meters of melt back. At the end of the year, the glacier is roughly 10 meters, 30 to 35 feet shorter on average. For instance, in 1964, that hill we just walked down, we wouldn't have needed to walk down it at all. We would have been able to walk right off the edge of the parking lot into about a 150-foot wall of ice. So we're seeing almost a half a mile of recession to the ice that's exposed above the water in the last 60 years. Now, last year was a pretty cool year, though. We actually watched this glacier grow for the first time since 1855 last year. It grew over 150 feet, which basically made up a 5-year deficit in 1 year. And we attribute that to the fact that the last couple of winters we've had have been pretty long and cold. Snowfall totals the last 3 years up on Mount Marcus Baker, but back up where they were 20 and 30 years ago. And basically, we worked on our third year without a summer here. Quite literally, the highest temperature I've done a tour out here in the last 2 years is 78 degrees. This year it has not broken 70 degrees on the ice, so even 8 degrees cooler. I don't think we're going to hit it after this. And 3 years ago, I did tours out here in the 90s. So significant temperature changes, more snowfall during the winter. It's making for a happy glacier right now. That has not equated to happy Alaskans. That means a whole lot of rain during the summer months, cooler temperatures than we're used to, and a whole lot of snow and cooler temperatures in the winter as well. So, but the glacier's happy, so we're happy. So what we're going to do next, we're going to walk across this bridge. There are some grates. There's one getting on it, and then when we get off, there's going to be several grates that we're going to walk across. They're mainly just keeping us out of mud and off of ice, but the ice does melt out, so they can get a little bit wobbly. And then we've got this little hill of ice that we've got to walk across. We do gravel the top of it, but just use some extra caution until we get across that hill, because that's where we'll put on our micro spikes, and then we'll have good traction from there on out. Sound good?
Yep.